Hey, my name is Professor Sen. I'm a consultant rheumatologist based in the adolescent and young adult unit at University College London. I'm here today to talk to one of my patients, and it's been a privilege to have been part of Luke's journey for well over a decade now. This is a little clip, that video we're making, that we're hoping will be shown to schools to illustrate to school children, probably in the sixth form and above, who've perhaps never had any experience of a young person living with a long-term condition, or maybe a young person themselves living with a long-term condition, and may be feeling slightly lost, maybe feeling slightly alone. So, Luke, if I can turn to you now, um, and ask you to cast your mind back to those years, many years ago now, when you were at school. Um, can you just tell me what your experience was like when you first started developing symptoms and how it affected your everyday life?
Sure. At the age of 11, I started getting some growing pains, is what they initially thought. Unfortunately, my ankle ballooned up to the size of a tennis ball, and I started limping. And unfortunately, it wasn't until 2 years later where I actually met Dr. Sen, and he diagnosed me with juvenile idiopathic arthritis. And For those 2 years, it was very much in limbo. We weren't sure what the issue was, so there was a lot of uncertainty. We knew it was plantar fasciitis, but we didn't know. I didn't have the proper diagnosis, so that was really, really hard not knowing. And then once I was diagnosed, there was a thing of shame of having an old person's disease, and it was very difficult to manage. But at least we had some sort of diagnosis that we could then prescribe some proper medication and everything for, and then I was on kind of the right track. So it was a bit of a frustrating time being led down lots of different blind alleys, and we tried many different things. But yeah, ultimately it took a while to get the diagnosis.
And Luke, I remember meeting you many years ago, and it clearly affected your everyday life. And can you remember specifically how it affected you at school?
Yeah, so sport was my passion. I got it initially just in the transition of moving away from primary school and into secondary school. And in primary school, I loved football. It's all I ever talked about, it's all I ever played, it's all I ever did, it's all I ever watched. And not having football for me was very, very frustrating because I couldn't make friends the way that I kind of usually did. And For me, it was something where it was just the rug was taken from under me. In terms of managing pain, I had to relearn how to walk again. I remember the physio vividly telling me to put my heel, then my toe, then my heel, then my toe. There was, yeah, pain in my hips where I couldn't move. There was some days where I couldn't get out of bed. And Yeah, I was the P's assistant for many of the times as well, which was incredibly frustrating. Um, yeah, it was a hard time. I was on crutches for a fair amount of time as well. Yeah, it was a really, really painful, difficult period.
And I'm guessing, Luke, we're talking about the first few years of your journey towards getting a diagnosis, and then first receiving the diagnosis and then having the initial treatments. We'll come on perhaps to the later parts of your journey in a while. But can I ask again, specifically with regard to school, do you remember how the other pupils, your peers, how the teachers reacted to you, you know, being the way you were, being unable to do the things that you were normally able to do?
Yeah, so many people differed in how they approached it. There were some people that were very kind and nice, very patient. I'm talking about pupils here directly. There are other pupils who weren't so nice, but the key people that I remember and the key people that I love and still contact today are the people who really stuck up for me. when other people made my life a little bit more difficult. So those pupils that, would say, don't pick on Luke or whatnot, those are the kind of people that I really valued and care about and will always remember and be in debt to really forever. In terms of the teachers, um, I mean, I felt like when I was doing PE, I felt like there was a lot of wasted time of me sitting on the sidelines and helping kind of organize stuff. I feel like I love the phrase and the philosophy, you can be anything but not everything. And I feel like if I'd put that and channeled that energy into something more productive rather than spending 2 hours a week kind of just watching other people live what I really want to do, and that's football or tennis or basketball, something like that. I could have channeled that energy and learned something new. So I'd say to the teachers, be mindful if there is a long-term kind of disease that someone's living with, to maybe think about how that person can use their time and their energy better. So yeah.
Okay, that's really helpful, and that's clearly a difficult time, and I think those tips to both fellow students and teachers is something that could potentially be useful in the future for other young people who I still see to this day, as you know, who are going through similar experiences to yours many years ago. So take us a bit further along your journey, Luke. You've got the diagnosis, you've started treatment. What next?
So it took a while to get that treatment. And when it did start to kick in and start getting better, fortunately, it was a thing where eventually it slowly but surely started to burn out. That combined with physio and then with movement as well. So I was, as I said, obsessed with football, and that was something which I just couldn't do. So talking about channeling your energy, I channeled my energy into badminton, a non-contact sport, which I actually didn't need to move much, but that gave me a real new lease on life and a new passion. And it gave me kind of the confidence that actually I can play sports. So even though it wasn't the sport that I wanted to do, it was a sport which I really could do. And I feel like it was a kind of a revolving cycle in which I got stronger because I was moving more. So that really helped. Physio really, really helped as well. So like doing stuff like squats and deadlifts, very, very light exercise, pretty much body weight. But that was kind of great as well. And then slowly but surely, I started getting better and better. And then thankfully, it was a thing where it kind of came into remission by about year 11, year 12. I think it was year 12, year 13, actually. But by year 11, I wasn't limping half as much. And yeah, it felt like I could kind of live a normal life again. And that was kind of a breath of fresh air. So yeah, that was
And
kind of the 4 years done.
and that sort of return to some sort of normality. I mean, obviously at that age, there's so many things that are changing. It's probably difficult to know what normality is. But are there specific behaviors, again, from either fellow pupils or teachers that you remember that were particularly helpful, and maybe some other behaviors that may have been less helpful? Sort of looking back on that time, can you reflect on that at all?
Yeah, so one pupil in particular, one of my best mates, we played badminton all the time, and he was really enthusiastic about badminton already. And kind of his energy and passion really rubbed off on me. The fact that he was just so in love with this sport that I never even kind of would have considered. So, it is a thing of kind of find something which you do have the ability to do, and then, yeah, get really passionate about it and find people that are really passionate about that as well. So yeah, in terms of teachers, I would say it was a thing where because sport was something that was taken away from me, I did focus more on my studies, and that actually long term served me out really well because I ended up putting a lot more energy into being more academic. And from there, I managed to go to a very good university doing a mentally challenging course. And yeah, so yeah, I guess it just energy goes where energy flows.
And Luke, you describe your journey back to sort of normality, but as it's probably easier for me to say because you're quite a modest person, you've achieved an amazing amount in the last few years. And I think if you wouldn't mind, it would be really helpful for you to give our audience a sense of what you've achieved, because I think you're a prime example of how having a long-term condition, even if it starts in childhood, should not be a barrier to achieving great things. So would you mind outlining a few of your achievements?
Sure. So my biggest achievement to date was back in 2019. It's far from my biggest event, but I didn't speak about arthritis to anyone and anyone really at all. I just had deep shame about it, and I trained to do the marathon, the Athens Authentic Marathon, and in the process, I managed to raise £2,000 for £2,400 versus arthritis. And that kind of set me off into kind of the ultra endurance world, you could say. And I was always into strength training. I was always into gym and yoga before that. So then after I did the marathon, COVID hit. But I did a thing called a half Ironman. A half Ironman is a 2 kilometer swim followed by a 90 kilometer cycle and then a half marathon after that. So I managed to do three of those. I then did a full Ironman, which is exactly double that distance. So it took me 12 hours and 59 minutes, which is actually a pretty good time. Um, I think the cutoff is 16 hours. The cutoff is 16 hours and most people finish it in about 14 hours. So yeah, that's a 4 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer cycle, and a marathon run after that. So a lot of training went into that. It's something that I'm intensely proud of. Last year I swam the biggest lake, the longest lake, the biggest and longest lake in England, which is called Windermere. So that is a an 18 kilometer swim. So anything above a 10 kilometer swim is considered a marathon. So pretty much a double ultra marathon, if you like. And this year I'm training to swim the English Channel. So from England to France on a solo. So that's in 16-degree water. It's pretty cold. It's not a wetsuit. You're not allowed to touch the boat. More people have summited Everest than they have swum from England to France on a solo. I think around 2,500 people have done it in total. There are many Olympians that have tried and failed to actually do it. So it is a mammoth of a task. And it is, yeah, it's not expensive. It's not cheap as well. Like you have to have your own private boat. It's not like it's a race where many people can go over. I think around 12 or 13 people have passed away from doing it. It is literally the pinnacle of open water swimming. So it's a very exciting challenge. They say bravery is the highest form of stupidity. I'm very brave, and yeah, I'm loving kind of the journey that I'm doing kind of for this ultra marathon swim. So yeah, it's going to be between 21 miles to 30 miles, so 30 to 40 kilometers. So yeah, and the key thing is just the cold and the time that it will take. It takes anywhere between 7 hours to 29 hours. So it's quite the journey.
Wow. And yes, I certainly am not as crazy as you, and I'm far too old to do that now, but that sounds amazing. And look, you've focused on the physical areas, which I get, and I also get the degree of mental resilience you're going to have to do, the sort of you need for the endurance events you describe. Um, but perhaps not everyone's going to be swimming the English Channel solo. I think you've done a lot in the rest of your life. I mean, you touched a bit on your academic kind of pathway, and it might be quite helpful, especially for the young people who might be listening of a school age, to hear a bit more about your kind of vocational academic journey. Would you mind touching on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So at A levels, I did maths, geography, and psychology. So I went to a state school and my grades in GCSEs weren't great. I worked my socks off in my A-levels and managed to get an ABB. So I went to Russell Group University, Leeds Uni, to do mathematics. It was one of the best unis for maths at the time. And after that, I went into software engineering. So I've been in software for about, oh God, about 11 years now. I kind of bumped up from being an individual contributor, so a software engineer, to a team lead, so looking after 5 engineers. And now my current role, I work for a sports streaming company where I have looked after 3 teams of 18 software engineers. So I'm currently managing kind of 3 big teams of kind of software engineers. So yeah, like there's a lot of yeah, there's a lot of application between kind of, you know, the struggle when I was younger, and then also kind of you know, really putting my energy into kind of my work as well as kind of my health as well, with all of these ultra endurance events and health and stress management. And yeah, so yeah, like it's kind of try to be the best I can be in every area.
I think that really comes across, Luke. So, look, I think for time's sake, we need to wrap up now. So, I'm going to say what I think the key message is, and then I might ask you to finish this little clip. So, I think what you illustrate in leaps and bounds is that what hopefully I've tried to tell you from the start, that we strive in our service to not cure arthritis, because we can't do that, but not let the arthritis be a barrier to you achieving what you want to achieve. That's certainly what I think is a realistic and achievable aim. And I think, Luke, what you've done in the last however many years we've known each other now, is you've demonstrated just how aspirational you can be, and that, you know, the sky or the English Channel really is the limit. So support along the way is important, and, you know, the medical team or the, you know, the multidisciplinary team at the hospital can only do so much. I think what happens at school, what happens in everyday life, is just as important, if not more important. So, you know, the sky's the limit. Long-term conditions do exist in children. They shouldn't be barriers, and everyone needs to support these young people, would be my key messages. And Luke, I'm going to ask if you would like to just round off, please.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think community is a massive part of ultra endurance events, as well as mentoring and coaching as well in your career. I feel people, you know, make up the individual of who you are, as you say. You know, you are the 5 people that you hang around with the most. So make sure that, you know, you're with really empowering people who are kind of helping you along your journey, really supportive, empathetic, compassionate, and yeah, be that person that helps kind of multiply into more amazing people. The other thing I would very quickly note on is that people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. I feel like I'm living proof that, you know, as I didn't really swim at all pre 2022. And you know, it is a thing where you can just learn and pick up a skill and just do and get better and better and better if you just immerse yourself in that thing. And finally, just my favorite last quote is, "It's not the power of the curse, it's the power that you give the curse." And I feel like I have totally made my message by, you know, really being open and vulnerable about having arthritis, and you know, really trying to show that absolutely incredible things are possible when you live with kind of a long, you know, autoimmune disease. So yeah, it's possible, and just keep trying and keep growing, really. So yeah, those would be my key messages.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you again, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Sen. Cheers.